Welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast, your home for weekly information and inspiration to help you get the graduate job of your dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast with your host, James Curran. The Graduate Job Podcast is your home for all things related to helping you on your journey to finding that amazing job. Each episode I bring together the best minds in the industry, speaking to leading authors, graduate recruiters and career coaches who bring decades of experience into a bite-sized weekly 30-minute-ish show. Put simply, this is a show I wish I had when I graduated. Hello and welcome to the show today. I've got an inspiring episode for you as continuing my recent episodes with listeners to the show. I am today joined by recent business management graduate Sibrah as she shares how she managed to secure not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 graduate jobs with highly competitive graduate schemes. Yes, you heard that right, 5 graduate jobs. Now, Sibrah is just like you, a listener to the show who got in touch with me over a year ago now for one-on-one coaching and then signed up to the launch of my How to Get a Graduate Job course back in September last year. And in today's episode, she shares her experience of going through the application process for a range of different firms, sharing her insights into what she learned from the CV application stage, completing over 40 different psychometric tests, and just how she managed to have a 100% pass rate at the recorded video interview stage. Now, getting a graduate job on one graduate scheme is an achievement. So you are going to want to keep listening to find out just how Sibrah managed to get 5 offers of graduate jobs. Now, the links to the show notes today, including a full transcript you can download and links to everything we discuss, can be found at graduatejobpodcast.com/Sibrah, which is Sibrah. So the last 5 episodes with Jack, Atavan, Callum, Safi and Sibrah all have one thing in common. Aside from the fact they all got amazing grad jobs, it's that they were all the founding members of my How to Get a Graduate Job online course. 7 people joined the course, and I'm extremely proud to say that they all got graduate jobs, with most of them, as you'll hear with Sibrah, getting multiple offers. And I'm pleased to say I've opened up the updated and improved version of the course for new members for this new application cycle. And as a very special offer for a limited time only, I'm including £375 worth of one-on-one coaching with yours truly, if you sign up before the 31st of August. That is 5 hours of one-on-one coaching with me where you can practice recorded video interviews, get you ready for assessment centres, get your CV looking perfect, whatever you want to cover. You've got 5 hours with me to use as you see fit. This offer will run to the 31st of August, so don't hang about. Get yourself to howtogetagraduatejob.com and sign up now. And of course, this is in addition to the 14 hours of video tutorial content, handouts, cheat sheets galore, the private members Facebook group, and weekly webinars. Look, if you need it to get a graduate job, it's in the course. And if you want proof it works, just listen to my episode with Sibrah and the previous 4 episodes. It worked for them, and it will work for you too. So that's graduatejob.com. I look forward to you joining me in the course soon. Okay, let's jump in to the show with Sibrah. I am very excited to welcome to the show listener of the show and course alumni member of the How to Get a Graduate Job course, and also, believe it or not, the owner of 5 graduate job offers. Welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast, Sibrah.
Hi James, nice to be speaking to you today.
And great to have you on the show. And today we're going to explore just how you managed to get 5 offers for graduate jobs, which is unbelievable. And we will go through what you managed to do and the secrets for how you got so many offers from different companies. But before we do, let's start at the beginning. Do you want to give the listeners a little introduction to who you are?
Yeah, so hi, my name's T20. I'm studying a business management degree from the University of Surrey. It was really interesting and I really enjoyed it. And whilst I was doing that, I did some work experience in consulting. So that's the kind of route that I wanted to go to and kind of get my graduate job in that. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. And you got in touch initially. I was going through my emails on the 11th of May. So we're looking at recording this sort of mid-July. So 14 months ago. I can't believe it was that long ago that you got in touch. What made you initially reach out and email me?
Yeah, it does feel like ages ago now, but the reason I kind of emailed you was in my third year, I had done a few applications and gone through the processes of some of the jobs and gone quite far in some, but not as far in others. So I'm just trying to see where I could go for some sort of help or those kind of things. And then I think I saw your podcast because I'm quite an avid listener of different podcasts. And I thought it was really interesting, and you've done hundreds of different podcasts and things. So I was just listening to those, and then, I thought I'd reach out and email you just so I could get some kind of more in-depth kind of, talks and trying to figure out, what I've done well, but what I could improve on for the future and trying to get or secure a really good grad job.
Excellent. And I can remember when we initially spoke, you mentioned that so that year when in your final year at uni, you applied to, I think it was about 30 jobs, and you got to the assessment centre, was it with 2? And I can remember thinking,
2 or 3. Yeah,
I can definitely help you here. And initially you signed up for the sort of 10-hour coaching package. And initially you signed up for the sort of 10-hour coaching package that I offer, but I think your brother ended up nicking half the sessions, didn't he? So I was splitting my time between coaching you and coaching your brother.
Yeah. So it ended up because I kind of I did reach out to you in May, and that was kind of the end of the grad job season. So at that time there weren't many jobs available for me to be applying to, and my brother randomly got kind of into I think it was a degree apprenticeship application for an FMCG company. So I thought that he could use those hours and get a little bit of coaching from you whilst I didn't really have much to do at that time.
Yeah, is the this time of year is sort of the graveyard shift of looking for graduate jobs, and then in the summer, graveyard shift of looking for graduate jobs, and then in the summer, then later in the summer, towards the sort of end of August, then you initially then signed up for the 3-month unlimited coaching package. Why did you go for this one?
Yeah, I thought it would be a really great time to start that, because I think initially around September, October, November are the time where loads of like kind of jobs are coming out, at least one or sometimes 5 a day are coming out. So that's really the time I think it'd be really helpful for that coaching, going through applications or even video interviews further down the line. So I think that was a really good kind of package for me, as I knew that I was kind of doing this full time. So I thought as much help as I can get, I would try and get from that unlimited package.
Yep, and we spent a lot of time at the beginning working on one was just making sure your CV was as impressive as it could be, and it was got it to a really, really impressive stage, and then also just focusing on video interviews. We did lots of video interview prep. So let's break those down in turn. Any thoughts or advice on the CV stage that you'd like to pass on to people?
Yeah, I think I know that I've heard this so many times, but it's just catering your CV to every application. Even now, when I speak to some people, they're still quite shocked as I have a CV for every company I've applied to, basically.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely just catering that CV. And I think just kind of reflecting back on your previous jobs or your experiences and just trying to find out what you did and the strengths that you gained from it or the skills that you gained from it, because a lot of the time people have done things and they don't really look at the the big kind of impact.
And as you said, the fact that your friends were surprised by that you have a different CV for each company just shows the value of it and just why it's so important to do, because it really does make you stand out. And we did spend a lot of time on that and just making sure that each CV was really crafted and tailored to the specifics of the company that you're applying to. So it wasn't just, one CV for, say, a consulting CV. It was, as you said, really tailored to each specific consulting company that you were applying to, so it could stand out. And you did that really, really well. Yeah. So then let's start at the beginning then. So where was your thinking initially when you started applying in terms of which companies you applied to? So I've got your application tracker here, and impressively, you applied to 43, I beg your pardon, 43 different companies over the, and impressively, you applied to 43, I beg your pardon, 43 different companies over the course of the sort of the application cycle. Where was your thinking initially then in terms of the companies that you wanted to apply to first?
Yeah, so I think initially, right at the start, even when me and James were talking before I'd applied to any, it was really the consulting route, but also any kind of really kind of large corporate kind of companies with some kind of businessy or finance type graduate schemes that could offer training and that experience alongside. So initially it was definitely a lot kind of just consulting, but then I kind of opened up the search to kind of any industry, but in the business or finance route, as I'd done a business degree previously.
As well as working on your CVs, one of the things that you spent a lot of time in was putting the practice into the online testing phase, because they come very, very quick and shortly afterwards. So I'm just looking again at your tracker. So it tends to be the gap between you putting the application in and then having to do the test is on average like 3 days, sort of 3 to 4 days for a lot of companies. So, see here, the civil service, you applied on the 20th and you completed the test on the 23rd. So, listeners, you don't have long to get your skills up for the online testing phase. How did you find practicing for that? What were the challenges you faced?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be practicing your tests even maybe before you've applied. So the summer before, or if you have that time before, just make sure that you're practicing. The reason being, once you've submitted your application, it's normally a very automated. So the summer before, or if you have that time before, just make sure that you're practicing. The reason being, once you've submitted your application, it's normally a very automated process. So it automatically gives you within 7 days or within 5 days, you have to do the test. So it's quite difficult to do your application and then have those, few days of practice. So if you've had that initial practice, then it's, it takes less time during that kind of really crucial period. However, I did have some challenges at the start. I think normally with numerical reasoning, even though I wouldn't say that I'm horrible at maths, but it's just the kind of time periods and the kind of time that you have is really short, even though it's quite basic maths. So just getting used to that and being able to do the maths quickly is something really important. And I think that's only through practice that I got better, and you do get better quite quickly. So I think, just practice makes perfect, really.
Definitely. And just looking again at your tracker, there was a couple that you did sort of fail initially. I think that served as maybe a sort of a kick up the bum in terms of just, the standard that was required for some of them, especially the more numeric sort of consulting firms. But yeah, after that, then you flew through all of them, and you did really well. But it was great advice, as you said. Listeners, this is going to go out in July. There's no reason why, if you're going to be applying for jobs in September, you wouldn't start the online testing phase now, and just getting that practice up. You don't want to start practicing when you submit it, because you're going to be properly behind the curve. So if you're going to be applying, why would you not get yourself ready and just start building that muscle straight away? Quickly coming after the online.
So quite limited in my experience with video interviews.
One of the things that we did practice on, and as part of the course came with, well, you had the unlimited package, so we did lots and lots of mock recorded video interviews. And I can remember your initial performance, the reason we did them was to practice, right? And one of the things you struggled with was time and just getting your answer in within the initial 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever the countdown timer was, which is why we practice them. How did you find those initial practice sessions?
Yeah, initially it was quite brutal, and I didn't know how people could do it within the time limit and get everything in and within the time and be able to explain themselves. So I really thought it was kind of like, I just didn't know how people did it. But I think it was, again, I think I'm probably going to be saying this a lot, people did it. But I think it was, again, I think I'm probably going to be saying this a lot, but it was just the practice that we did, met multiple times, and having that a little bit of confidence as well, because you've gone through a few of the stages now, and it's normally the video interview comes one before the assessment center, so right at the end. So I think just having a little bit of confidence in your abilities, but also just making sure you're practicing being able to really shorten your answers, making them very concise, is something that you have to learn to do as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a skill. And listeners, you don't want to be doing it for the first time. When it's, it really counts with a company you really want the graduate job for. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, this is the first time I'm going to do record a video interview. It just doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't do that in any other sort of walk of life. You'd practice. So perfect, and it does pay to do that. So check out the show notes, which you can find today at graduatejobpodcast.com/Sibrah, where I link to my service where we can do mock recorded video interviews that are tailored specifically to you, specifically to the companies you're applying to, the same time limits and the same questions that you're going to face from the real thing, just to make sure that you are performing at your best and not leaving anything to chance. So Sibrah, you mentioned that you were doing this full time in the initial period. So looking at your tracker, sort of towards the end of September, beginning of October, where a lot of these companies were opening up, how did you manage to, or how did you prioritize your time? How did you balance all of these companies you want to work for, submitting quality applications, which you did, and then prioritize your time? How did you balance all of these companies you want to work for, submitting quality applications, which you did, and then making sure you were ready for the testing and the video interviews? How did you manage this?
I think a lot of it actually comes down to very simple concepts, and one of them is I just did a lot of to-do lists and listing and just prioritizing everything that I had. I think, I basically have a list for everything. So I'd have a weekly list, a daily list. That really helped me just make sure that even kind of within the month, what I wanted to do, longer term periods. So within 3 months, what do I want to have achieved by then? Or, within the hour, what I need to do and what time, things are submitted or the deadlines. So I think definitely kind of prioritizing all of that, being really
unlimited package. You were part of the How to Get a Graduate Job course as well. How did you find going through the process with a cohort of other people who are also applying for jobs at the same time?
Yeah, it was really nice to have those people, going through the same process as you were, being able to talk about it weekly with everybody. So I definitely recommend it to anyone, and especially as a lot of my friends weren't applying this year or had already got a job. So it kind of left me with not many people in the same position as me. So it was really nice to have people applying to similar roles or similar kind of companies, and just being able to talk about anything in terms of jobs or video interviews or things like that, and having kind of that support from them.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the course is there's weekly meetings where everyone gets together. We how other people answer them and their skills and techniques and help critique them, and they could help critique you. And then also did mock group exercise as well, just so you could understand what it's like to be in a group exercise situation, which is something that is very alien and again. Practice does make perfect with these, so it's good to make sure you get the practice in beforehand. So let's take you back to September, October, November time. In terms of sort of morale, how were you going through this period? I know other people sort of had a bit of a dip, and we've talked about that in the episodes with Jack and Atavan and Callum. How did you keep your spirits up at this time?
Yeah, I think initially, so September, October, November time was quite good. I was really in full force with the applications. I think I was doing so many applications at that time and the testing and things like that. So I think because there was so much on, I was able to be kind of distracted and just basically doing work all the time. Applications, I think I was doing so many applications at that time and the testing and things like that. So I think because there was so much on, I was able to be kind of distracted and just basically doing work all the time. So initially morale was kind of good, but it did kind of dip, yeah, as you were talking about with the rest of the kind of group.
Yeah, what personally did you do to try and mitigate that? How did you keep your spirits up?
Yeah, I think it was quite difficult because it was during lockdown, so not many things were open and you weren't able to see your friends or, go to the gym and things like that, which you normally would do, which would help a lot in terms of mentally and physically. So I think the things that I was just making sure that I was doing is trying to spend a little bit of time just for myself or doing something that I like or, a little bit of cooking or reading and get my mind off and basically just applying for jobs the whole time.
Yeah. And did you treat it as a full-time job? I mean, were you doing it 8 hours a day or more? Or how much time and effort did you put in?
Yeah, pretty much. It was a full-time job, maybe even more than that, because I wasn't really giving myself weekends off. Unfortunately, with the timings of, for example, video interviews or tests, you have the certain amount of days and you don't really get weekends off. And if you have to do a video interview on a Sunday, unfortunately, you do have to do it then. So it sometimes does end up that you haven't had a day off in many days. So that is a little bit of an issue, and I'd probably say to people listening to just make sure that you're aware of kind of giving yourself that time off and not just going at it for such a long period of time. That is a little bit of an issue, and I'd probably say to people listening to just make sure that you're aware of kind of giving yourself that time off and not just going at it for such a long period of time.
Yep, completely agree. And just having that something that you can do to break and just relieve the stress and the tension is definitely recommended. How did your approach to the types of companies you applied to change? So at the beginning we mentioned a focus on consulting, but there's not that many consulting companies who have large graduate schemes. How did it evolve in terms of the companies that you were applying to?
Yeah, as you were saying, there's only a certain amount of consulting companies that I was able to apply to. So once I'd done that, I was kind of really interested. The thing with doing a business degree is that I've been really interested in a lot of different industries and doing different assignments on things. Somebody saw my application tracker, they might think that, you've applied to everywhere, but I did normally have an interest in that industry initially. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just to read out a few, we've got applications here to credit cards, banks, supermarkets, FMCGs, investment banks, large retailers, logistics companies, the consulting companies we talked about, your big four, telecoms. There's a real mix. But what you did really well, and this goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, was from reading your CV and reading your initial application, it didn't come across that it was just a cut and paste job. It really came across that you might have been applying to, I don't know, an insurance company, because there's a couple of insurance companies on this list. It's still, you'd read a CV and it's like, oh wow, company, because you'd be able to pull out the different particular aspects of your course that had maybe a financial element of your business degree or whatever it might be, and it really did come across that you weren't just blagging it. It wasn't just, I'm really excited to apply to insert name of company X for these reasons. How did you manage to, and was it a conscious effort to really make that the case and really tailor it?
Yeah, I definitely think the tailoring aspect and just having a little bit of a genuine interest in that industry is really helpful, because it's very difficult to do applications where you're not interested at all. So I think, yeah, definitely. And then in kind of relation to that, I made sure to always be applying for the business or finance routes of that. So they were normally quite similar in the sense of kind of the skills that they wanted, and the kind of training they were providing as well, and the progression routes. So I think were normally quite similar in the sense of kind of the skills that they wanted, and the kind of training they were providing as well, and the progression routes. So I think, yeah, as I stuck to the business kind of roles, it was quite helpful that they kind of did align to a certain degree.
Definitely. So as you move later in the year, you were getting the video interviews coming thick and fast, and I think this is right, you had a 100% success rate with every video interview that you got to. So what I mean by this is that everyone you did, you passed to the next stage, which is a phenomenal achievement. Well done. And yeah, it just goes to show that the practice really did pay off. What were your lessons and experiences from doing just so many video interviews that that you learned, and tips that you can pass on to people?
Yeah, thank you. Really great to kind of see that achievement and being able to have, I think, 100% on all of the video interviews. So I think a few of the things that I would say is I was one of those people who I found it very awkward to be speaking to nobody, basically speaking to the camera. However, in the end, I really actually enjoyed the video interviews, and that's, if I heard that a few months ago, I'd really be shocked. So I think there's a few things that you could do. So for example, one would just be that practicing. So even whether if it's with your camera in front of you and recording yourself and seeing what that is. And then obviously with James, I did the kind of ones with the time limits and the questions. And then I think another thing would be to kind of have a bank of some of the answers for, if there was a question about why this company or why you suited to the role. So some of the more generic questions, kind of having that kind of listed, or some answers or points that you would want to touch upon within the interview is a really helpful kind of tip.
Definitely. And what also helped was, and I know from a couple of the different interviews that, again, this goes back to the value and the power of the How to Get a Graduate Job course, is we have a private Facebook group where we'd share the questions that people were facing in the different interviews. But again, as you said, you've still, even if you know the question, you've still got to have a good answer. And we worked a lot on your having that bank of competency answers that you said, and also strength answers, and also just the more motivational answers about why you want to work for company X, why you want to work in this particular industry. We spent a lot of time on that, and you had really, really compelling answers there, which is shown by the results you got. And love your interviews, which I see quite a lot of them, is your body language was sort of exceptional, and by that I mean specifically eye contact was really strong. So what most people do is they're looking anywhere but at the webcam, and it's equivalent when you're doing a video interview. The webcam is in effect the eyes of the other person. That is what they see, and if you're looking anywhere but the webcam, in effect, it's like having a conversation with someone where you're just not looking at them. You're looking above the camera, you're looking at the keyboard, you're looking around to the side, and it makes such a difference to the person watching it if if you're holding that view with looking at the webcam, it's in effect you're looking directly to the person who's going to be watching it back, and you did that really, really, really well. And also, as I mentioned, in terms of body language, you were passionate. You hadn't, especially for the the video recording software like HireView, which almost goes where the body language and the tone of your voice is really taken into account, and you did that really, really well. And then the final thing that you were excellent at was hitting that time limit. So at the beginning, something you struggled with, and then it just clicked, and you were an expert. No matter if you had 5 seconds left, 10 seconds left, you could just wrap up the answer really well in a nice little neat bow and finish with 1 or 2 seconds left, and just keep that gaze for the webcam. You did that really, really well. So for me, there were a couple of things that that really, really stood out.
Yeah, I think just to add one more point would be that I think for people, because I was definitely like this, who are very rigid, or they kind of are people that have kind of look at the one point would be that I think for people, because I was definitely like this, who are very rigid, or they kind of are people that have kind of they look at the paper or write down their answers previously and kind of regurgitate them. I definitely say that I think this process overall has also taught me to be very flexible and adaptable to different situations. Just because, for example, there's only 10 seconds left and you're only halfway through the answer in the real thing, you have to be able to be flexible and be able to change up what you're saying and making sure that you answer it succinctly. So I think, definitely make sure you're kind of adaptable to different changes or different things.
Completely. And you did this really, really well, but it's a skill which you learn and you developed and you put the time in. So listeners, don't be daunted or feel daunted like this. So this isn't something you can master. This is something you can completely master if you put the same work Sibrah put in, and she put in a lot of work. But she got the rewards with all of it. So that took us then. So a lot of video interviews, sort of end of December, beginning of January time, taking us, and also sort of few early ones in October, taking us through then to the first assessment centre that you got. So the first one was let's just call them a large multinational logistics company. So do you want to maybe talk us through that initial assessment centre? What was involved? And, it was your first one this year. How did you feel going into it?
Yeah, I was pretty daunted by that assessment centre, definitely. But I knew I'd been working for it this whole time, so I was pretty excited as well at the same time. So it was very nerve-wracking. However, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, it was pretty kind of a generic assessment centre. So there was an interview, one-on-one interview involved. Then there was a group exercise, and then there was kind of an individual presentation that you had to do as well.
And any recollections of how any particular challenges or how they went, or was it all pretty smooth sailing?
I think that one was actually not too bad. The interview went really well actually. And the group exercise was not too bad either. However, the individual presentation, it was quite quick and different to what I imagined. So I think that was something that I was I didn't know how it went or if it went well. So that was the only thing that I was kind of scared about, whether I would get a role or not.
Yep. And similar to the application stage, so what you really did
was kind of scared about whether I would get a role or not.
Yep. And similar to the application stage, so what you really did well, and again we put time into this, was really having a good why for why you wanted to work for each of these firms. So I mentioned initially this is a multinational logistics company. You had a really strong why about why this particular scheme and why this particular company. That was really impressive, and no doubt impressed them because they made you the offer. Again, was this something? How did you work on this? What advice would you give people for how they can create that particular why?
Yeah, in terms of the motivation, I think there's a few things that you could do. So definitely be researching about the company in terms of whether they've been in the news recently, whether it be their annual statement, looking through the whole thing, which I know takes time, but you are asked that motivation question, which you most likely will be. And then additionally, just going onto LinkedIn and kind of speaking to some of their graduates or former graduates and getting some insight from them. I think that was one of the major differences or things that I think kind of made me stand out compared to other graduates or other people for that role, just having that in-depth insight into the role.
Definitely. And that's something we started working on, back in July. I can remember, the early sessions was, my getting you to develop your LinkedIn profile, but also just start reaching out to people for companies who you knew would be you would be applying to. And listeners, if this isn't something you're interested in finding out how to do properly, check out the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/Sibrah, where I link to my 5-step guide. And listeners, if this isn't something you're interested in finding out how to do properly, check out the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/Sibrah, where I link to my 5-step guide of the 5 things you need to do before you start applying for graduate jobs, and one of which is telling you how to reach out to people on LinkedIn. So it comes with a script to follow when you're emailing them that really works, and you can follow in Sibrah's footsteps. So you did really well with this application, and you got the offer from the logistics company. And this was, when was the first offer? So that was it the end of Feb?
Yeah, it was around mid-end Feb, yeah.
So you can see, listeners, the pace that some of these companies are working at. So application for that one went in October time, from application to offer. One of the things that we talked about was, and the good thing about the group is, you're going through with a cohort of other people on the How to Get Graduate Job course, but also, how did you find it, Sibrah, with the fact that some of the other members got offers quite quickly? So Jack, who I interviewed in, I think, episode 114, he got his first offer before Christmas. So offers were starting to come in, and I think other people were getting them January and certainly by February. How are you feeling about this time? Because I noticed you did, and I was trying to keep you G'd up and enthusiastic, and don't worry, it's coming. And I don't think you believe me. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I was really happy for them when they were getting their offers. However, it did have that little bit of comparison, kind of, you are putting the effort in, and you feel like there aren't any results kind of reaping from that. However, I think, yeah, definitely what I've learned from this is just persevering, and you will kind of get the rewards that you kind of put in, or the seed that you sow, kind of thing. So at first it was a little bit daunting to see those offers coming in, and you have been applying. However, I think, just making sure that if you're doing as much as you can within that time period, your time will come too.
Definitely, and I had complete confidence in you, and I kept on saying to you, Sibrah, don't worry, they'll be coming, you'll get the offers, because as you said, you were putting the hard work in, you were applying to these companies, you were doing amazingly, you were getting through all the stages, you had a 100% success rate with the video interviews. It was just a question of time. They're chasing people up, it's really difficult. I knew your time would come, and I kept on telling you, Sibrah, don't worry, you're going to be getting multiple offers. You'll get multiple offers, and again, you I don't know if you believe me, but we'll carry on with the story. And anyway, so that was you got an offer in the bag from the multinational logistics company. How did it feel then when that first offer came through?
Yeah, no, it did feel really great, just to have that offer. But to be honest, it didn't feel real at the same time, just because you'd put in so much time and effort, and it had been a lot of months going through the process. due to my experience the year before, I did get kind of the assessment centres much earlier on. So so it was kind of a lot longer, and I kind of wasn't expecting that. So my expectations were a little bit different. So I think make sure that I kind of wasn't expecting that. So my expectations were a little bit different. So I think make sure that you're kind of either kind of lowering your expectations or not having as many expectations, because once you're kind of comparing and contrasting, it can kind of have a detrimental effect. But it felt really great to have that offer in the bag, and just just knowing that, that work that you put in, or, that they really liked you and they think that you are able to do that role is, a really great feeling.
So did you ever, with that first offer, did you ever have any thoughts in your head of, cool, got it in the bag, I'm going to pull out of all these other companies?
Yes and no. So I think obviously it was really great to have that offer, but and it really did give me that drive to make sure that, once I got that job, I was like, okay, wow, I can actually do this. I think that was like the one fence that I was like, okay, wow, I can actually do this. I think that was like the one fence that I had left over to jump.
Yep.
So once I did that, it did feel good and kind of motivated me. But yeah, I don't think that I'd be in this kind of seat right here. So yeah, no, it was definitely more than I'd ever thought of.
And I could see a notable increase difference in confidence, right? As you said, that's the final hurdle you kicked over. You can do it, and also it just takes the stress off, right? You're not. I'm never saying you were, but you're not sort of desperate in inverted commas. And some candidates do have that air of desperation of like, give me the job, just please give me the job. I'll do anything for the job, which is admirable, but also nobody likes people who are desperate, right? So it took away that. It gave you that confidence of like, I can do this. I have another job offer, so I want this, which I think really helped you for the other 4 companies. So let's take us through the next one then, which is an international telecoms firm, which everybody will know. What was the assessment centre like for this one?
Yeah, so this one was quite different, as there weren't any group exercises, so it was all quite individualized. So there was a one-to-one interview, and then I think there were around 2 individual kind of case study or presentation type things. So yeah, it was a little different. With this one, I think the presentation kind of individual aspect went really well. But with this, whereas in my first job offer, my interview went really well, in this one, it wasn't as great of an interview. So I was kind of worried on that front. But yeah.
No need to be in the end, and advice for you there. No news is good news. So even if it's 2 weeks after the assessment centre, Sibrah heard back and she got the offer. So take heart from that. So then, amazing, right? You were in 2 job offers in the bag for 2 brilliant graduate schemes, but you kept on going. You were still in the process, and offers for assessment centres kept on coming through, right? So it makes sense. Why not carry on with them, right? So the next one though was quite interesting. This is for one of the big 4, who all the listeners will know. Am I right in thinking that you initially applied, or you initially wanted consulting, but it was full? So then you switched to audit, and an audit, sort of going for an audit role. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, initially I did want to go for the consulting graduate scheme, but yeah, I think that was that. Yeah. So yeah, initially I did want to go for the consulting graduate scheme, but yeah, I think that was that had finished or something. So yeah, I went for the audit role instead.
And we talked about this because they're an amazing company. Everybody knows who they are. But I didn't think this role would have been the best fit for you. What was your thinking then with sort of going ahead with it, just in terms of, because it wasn't like some of the guys on the course, so Jack and Atavan were like just applying, and Daniel were applying for audit. That was all they wanted to do. Whereas this one was just am I right in thinking you like the company more than you like the scheme or the audit scheme?
Definitely. I think the company and getting that qualification of chartered accountant, the motivational aspect to applying to that role.
But again, focusing on talking about motivation, the fact that you were able to, and I say this in a nice way, sort of convince them that audit was the role for you, when your heart might not have been set on it, is a testament to you and just how well you did with that. Do you want to maybe talk us through the assessment centre for this one and how that one went?
Yeah, so this one had an assessment centre, but then also after you had to pass that to get onto the final partner interview. So it was kind of a 2-stage process. So with that company, there was it was quite standard, where we had a group interview, a group activity or exercise. Then we had the interview, and then I think we had some sort of individual presentation. So I think those all 3 of those went pretty well. Your exercise, then we had the interview, and then I think we had some sort of individual presentation. So I think those all 3 of those went pretty well. So I was quite happy. And I pretty much kind of knew that I'd passed it, whereas because I'd got a few offers, I was able to kind of see whether would I have passed or would I have failed, whereas before I was quite unsure because I hadn't been in that I couldn't kind of critique my own performance.
Yep.
But by that time I'd become a little bit more tuned to what they wanted and things. So once I passed that, then we had a partner interview, and that was very relaxed and not formal at all. So it was really nice to kind of speak to one of their kind of partners and get to know the firm, and they really just wanted to get to know me. So it was a really nice interview, I'd say.
And that's what you're often, the final partner interview, as long as you're not with a law firm, can be really face fitting. So they're looking at you of, can I see you as part of my team? And it can be really informal and really relaxed, and there's not a set list of questions. They've got the ability to sort of go off piste and take the interview where they want it to go. So again, testimony to you that you did so well with this, which was then offer number 3. So congratulations, you are flying at this stage. And I can remember you get in touch and you go, yeah, I've got another one. I was just like, Sibrah, I told you they'd keep coming through. At this stage, did you think, right, 3, that's the one for me? Or were you still thinking, okay, let's keep going?
Yeah, by this, one of the members get.
Oh, he got 3. He got 3 offers.
Yes, I think you were kind of pushing me along to kind of so, and then I was really kind of interested in kind of beating that target. So yeah, there was a little bit of competition in that sense, and because I think one of the major things I'd have to say is the thing is that all of these were online, and I don't think I would have done as many assessment centres if they weren't online. I think I did about 12, and I had to reject about 5. So yeah, I don't think I would have ever done as many if they were in real life. I think being online was really helpful in terms of that.
Yeah, definitely. It just makes it so much easier than having to trek down to London or wherever it is. Definitely makes it easier. So the 4th company we can actually name, which are the civil service. So you got through to the assessment centre which are the civil service. So you got through to the assessment centre for the civil service. How did you find this one? How did the civil service sort of compare to these other big multinationals that you'd got offers from?
Yeah, I think the civil service, with them, it was different, but it was similar in the sense that they had, it was quite standard with the testing, but there were probably more tests involved, so it was a little bit of a longer process. They did take their time sometimes in kind of to the next stage, but they were quite quick. However, in terms of their assessment center, I think that was one of the ones where I kind of struggled in terms of the group exercise, as a lot of them were quite extroverted people, and I think I'm pretty introverted, and especially on camera, it's a bit difficult to engage in a group setting. So I think this was one where I was quite kind of intimidated by the people, and so it was a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting you say that, because at this stage we'd done loads of practice ones and you'd done loads of real life ones. But yeah, that's the thing with group exercises. You can practice them, but on the day it just really depends on the mix of people that you get in. So it's always really, really different.
Mm-hmm.
Super. So you talked about the assessment centre there. What was the outcome of this one? Because this is slightly different than the others.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, with this one you kind of get a certain grade or points. So if you kind of don't meet the points that are the average or whatever they're looking for, the threshold, then you kind of aren't going through. So so it's kind of like if you get the points you get through, and if you don't, you don't. So that was the kind of difference between the other ones.
So the scheme, how it works with the civil service then, is you apply for a particular part of the civil service. Is that correct? And so you went for the assessment centre for a particular part of the civil service, and then afterwards they said no, you didn't get the grades to get into this particular part of the civil service, but they then offered you another role in a different part of the civil service. Is that correct?
Yeah, so because my score was kind of just below, I think it was point something below, they were decent enough candidates, so they did offer me a role in a different kind of part of the civil service,
which was then offer number 4. So amazing. And by this stage you were sort of nearly ready to finish, because you were sort of umming and ahhing between the multinational logistics company and the multinational telecoms company, who have brilliant different sort of business graduate schemes. But then there was the final one that you were really interested in, which was one of the big 4 and their particular consulting graduate scheme. And then, so they got in touch and let you know that you were through to the assessment centre for them. So that was then the biggie. So it was interesting, because even though you'd had 4 job offers on the table and you'd been through, assessment centres before, I'm right in thinking then the nerves were sort of kicking in, because this is like the one that you really, really, really wanted?
Yeah, I think definitely that was the case. Definitely hit home, just because of the fact that this is what I'd really been going for all, throughout the start, and then I'd kind of veered off that kind of path and gone to a different one. But then once this job offer came quite late in the game, and I applied just a few months ago for it, which I didn't expect to do, and I didn't expect it to come across. So I think it was kind of a make or break moment for me.
So how did this assessment go? What was assessment centre? What was involved in this one?
Yeah, so this one was, I think, just a group exercise and an interview. But I think the interview was quite intense compared to the other ones that I'd done, as there were quite a few kind of follow-on questions. They also had a little bit of a kind of case study aspect to it as well. So it was kind of multifaceted in that interview, rather than the standard competency or standard strengths base. So it was quite an intense interview. So I was quite 50-50 whether I'd got the role or not.
But the good news came back that you did, and that was it. Graduate job at number 5, which is an absolutely amazing achievement. You can be so proud of yourself for how well you've done that. You hear people talking about the difficulty of getting a graduate job, and you've got 5. So a couple of things I just want to dig in with that one. So the first of which is, and we talked offline about this, just before we started recording. How did it feel then to have sort of 5 offers?
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty surreal. I think because of there's a few aspects as to why, just because obviously I hadn't gone to any of the offers, it does make it much more real. And just kind of doing it from your home is quite a lot different. And kind of that, and I think we were talking about it before, that there is a little bit of an anticlimax. You've been working so long and so hard for so many months, and when it's there, you just feel like you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, because by this stage, the offer for the consulting role at the Big Four probably came through in May. So by that stage, you'd been working for a year on getting a graduate job, sort of full time, by your own definition, from September. So a lot of work had gone in, a lot of energy had gone in, a lot of hours had gone in. So yeah, it's one of those things, you have in your mind, you want to achieve something, you've achieved it, you climb your Everest, you got to the top, and then it's sort of like, yeah, there can be that. It's one of those things, you have in your mind, you want to achieve something, you've achieved it, you climb your Everest, you got to the top, and then it's sort of like, yeah, there can be that anticlimax of like, oh, okay, right, what's next? So that's completely normal. So you've got 5 offers. How did you then begin to think about which one you were gonna take, or which one was going to be the right one for you? What were the key criteria that you were mulling over here?
Yeah, I think because they are a little bit, I guess, I don't know if you can say a little bit different, or the roles are not like completely the same. I think it was kind of umming and ahhing between a few of the different kind of graduate schemes. I think a few of the things such as, the kind of training aspects or the progression, what can
much of a part in that decision making process, listener, because focus on the role, focus on what's going to make you happy, focus on what's going to be interesting for you, and the money will come, right? Some of these schemes have like a couple of grand difference in pay, and you think, oh yeah, $2,000 difference, that's great. Yeah, but also after tax in your pocket at the end of the month, you're not talking much of a difference. It's not really going to move the needle. Whereas if you're taking a job for an extra $2,000 but you hate the job, that's not going to make you happy in the long run. And 3-4 years down the line, you're all going to be on the same money anyway. So don't really let salary sway you. So Sibrah, I'm just conscious that we've been going for a while now. What advice would you give yourself, a year ago? If you could go back in time and sort of give yourself some advice, what would you say? What advice would you give yourself, a year ago? If you could go back in time and sort of give yourself some advice, what would you say?
Yeah, I think one of them would definitely be prioritize mental health, just because it is a very kind of you feel like it's a very crucial point in your life, and you've finished your degree, or you're about to finish your degree, and it's kind of a big jump into the real world. So I think, yeah, just making sure you're prioritizing your mental health, doing things for you, as we touched on previously, and just being able to realize that things will come. Just make sure you're doing as much as you can do, but just kind of taking some time out for yourself as well. I think that would definitely be my advice for anyone kind of going through the same process as me.
Definitely, and especially in your final year, right? If you've got exams on, you've got work on, you've got deadlines on, and you're trying to get these applications in, just cut yourself some slack. Applying for jobs is a hard, stressful time. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself out for criticism and rejection from people you have never met before. Make sure that you're just finding that balance. Jobs will always be there to apply to next year, so make sure you're applying at the time that is right for you. So a great place, Sibrah, for us to finish that. The main part of the interview on is just that focus on making sure that listeners prioritize their mental health. So let's move on then to our weekly staple questions. I'll be interested to see what your answers are here, what nuggets you've got for the listeners. So first question, what one book would you recommend that they should read?
Yeah, I think I will have to go for Strength Finders. I think this has been mentioned previously, but I just think that it was such a good book, and doing the questionnaire as well, it helped in so many of the interviews. And as probably people might know, a lot of the companies are more likely to be doing strengths-based interviews, or they're going towards that path anyway. So I think it's a really great starter to finding out your strengths and being able to reflect. And if you have that time reflecting on your strengths, will definitely help you during this process.
Great advice. And Joe Jack in episode 115 recommended this one as well. Listeners, if you've not got this book yet, you need to get it. It is going to, as Sibrah said, it's going to really make a difference and really impress when you go through the application process. So check out the show notes, graduatejobpodcast.com/Sibrah, which is SIBRAH, podcast.com/Sibrah, which is SIBRAH, where you'll be able to find links to everything we've talked about today, including a full transcript and Sibrah's book recommendation of StrengthsFinder. So next question, Sibrah, what internet resource would you point listeners towards?
I think I would definitely have to do Bright Network. So they're kind of involved in a lot of different things now. So they have kind of the job listings, which is quite standard, but they've done a lot of different things, such as an internship experience, which I did last year, which was really helpful. Additionally, they were doing webcasts around every week about these kind of things as well. For example, tailoring your CV, or what kind of industries to go into, and things like that. So I think that's definitely a great one for people who are looking for a job. And yeah, I think it would definitely be just make sure you're very organized. There are a lot of deadlines that you have to meet in terms of the tests, or getting your application in. And I think for a few of the jobs, I did learn the hard way, where you think that the job would still be available, but you look in a few days' time and it's not. So yeah, definitely being organized, as I was saying, about the listing and kind of managing your priorities in that sense as well.
Brilliant advice. No matter how good your application, if it's late, you're going to go in the bin. So make sure that you're getting them in time, and the sooner the better, just so that you can make sure that you're not on the waiting list for different graduate jobs. So brilliant advice there, Sibrah. All that remains to say for me is just congratulations. Sibrah, 5 jobs is unbelievable. So as I said earlier, you can just be so brilliant advice there, Sibrah. All that remains to say for me is just congratulations. Sibrah, 5 jobs is unbelievable. So as I said earlier, you can just be so proud of all the work you've done. And the last year I've really enjoyed working with you. We've had a lot of fun, and I wish you every success with your future career.
Thank you so much, James. No, it's been really great to have you along in this way, and being such a great support for all of us within the group as well. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining me on the Graduate Job Podcast. So well done again to Sibrah. Hard work pays off, and it certainly did for her. She invested in herself and got the results with 5 graduate job offers. Brilliant work. Yes, she worked hard, but don't come away from this thinking that she followed my advice from our coaching sessions, she followed the steps from the How to Get a Graduate Job course, she followed the process, which I know works, and she got the results. And you can't argue with getting 5 graduate job offers from some of the most competitive schemes in the UK. It worked for Sibrah. It worked for Jack in episode 115 with getting 2 jobs in audit. It worked for Callum in episode 116, getting his job in FMCG and also consulting. And it worked for Atavan in episode 117, getting his graduate job in audit. And it worked for Safi in episode 118, getting 2 training contracts with top legal firms. Just like Sibrah, they invested in themselves. enrolled in the course, followed the process, and got the results. Now, if you want to get a graduate job, then the How to Get a Graduate Job course is just for you. You've heard firsthand how it works. It takes you through all the stages of getting ready to apply for graduate schemes. From the CV, online applications, recorded video interviews. It's got 14 hours of video content where I take you through everything you need to know and need to do. It's got handouts galore, cheat sheets, example CVs and cover letters. It comes with a private Facebook group just for you, me, and the other course members, and also has weekly webinars where we go through different topics every week. If you want to get a graduate job, this is the course you need. And for the month of August, I'm offering a very special offer. Buy before the 31st of August and you get 5 hours of one-on-one coaching with me worth £375. 5 hours to spend how you want. We can do entirely 5 hours of recorded video interview practice, or we can spend it on your CV, getting you ready for the assessment centre. It's entirely up to you. But this special offer is only going to go away, so don't delay. Go to howtogetagraduatejob.com and sign up now. You won't regret it. So episode 119 is done. Follow in Sibrah's footsteps and go to howtogetagraduatejob.com.